Hello, and welcome to the Coach Therapy Podcast. I'm Coach Q, and I am so excited that you decided to tune in today. We're going to take a journey through vulnerability so that we can reach clarity, healing, growth, and success. You're going to learn some things about you, you'll learn some things about me, but most importantly, you will receive tools every episode that will help you to become better every single day. Enjoy Coach Therapy. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Coach Therapy Podcast. I'm Coach Q, and I just want to start off with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for checking it out. It took a lot for me to start this podcast, but I'm so grateful that I did. And when I say it took a lot, it just took a lot for me to get out of my own way, for me to silence the thoughts in my head and silence all of the reasons why I couldn't. And here we are. I'm doing it. I am absolutely doing it, and I am grateful that you're doing it with me. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to I want to get into something good today. Each episode we lead with a vulnerability, and I'm going to be vulnerable. I don't even like vulnerability. I really don't. But my motto is that you can only be helped on the level of your vulnerability. Got to own it. Got to open up about it. And so I want to share something that I think will be helpful. For a long time, I was functionally depressed. And what I mean by that, it was that I knew how to do the stuff that I had to do. And what I didn't have to do, I just didn't do it because I didn't have the energy for it. And I did that for a while. Whew. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting. I had the tools, but I just didn't have the energy to use them. And it took me a while to get out of that place. And I want to share today. I want to share today what that's like. And I also want to let those individuals that are high functioning in a depressive state, I want you to know that I see you and I want to be a resource for you. And I want to help you with some tools to help you get out of that. Because that's a real thing. I know what it is. I remember before the pandemic, I was at like a low space and I was on my job and I had just outgrown it and I had overstayed. Anybody ever overstayed? My God. Ooh, I overstayed. And overstaying is dangerous in anything, in a job, in a relationship, in anything. Overstaying is not healthy. And so I had overstayed. I knew that I had outgrown the space, but I was trying to find ways to make it work. And I was so unhappy. And it seemed like every single day I became more and more unhappy to the point that I hated getting up in the morning. It was just like, ugh, another day. It was morning, but it was nighttime always. It was just like that cloud. And I would have that struggle with getting out of the bed every day and I would feel heavy, but then I would muster up enough energy to get dressed and show up with a smile and talk to people and do what I needed to do, high functioning. And then I would go home and I wouldn't have anything left for myself. Not the way to live. It was almost as if I put a battery in my back when I got to certain places and I would do just enough to laugh and kiki and all of the good stuff. And then I would go back home and it was just like I would be on zero again. And it was difficult. And there are some people who live like that every single day and you feel stuck. I know what that is. I know what that's like, but you deserve better. You deserve a better quality of living. And I understand that there are seasons that we go through, be it grief, um, of a loved one, of a relationship, of a job, of a career change that can take us to a low place. Or it could be us not being happy with ourselves and we find ourselves in a low spot. And we have enough energy to show up for everybody else, but nothing left for ourselves. We face depression silently and smile for everyone else. You deserve to smile for you. You deserve to show up for you. And I was in that space. And so I want to talk to folks that are in that space, because sometimes people can see me and like, oh, Coach Q, you're doing X, Y, and Z. But listen, life has a way of showing up for us all. Like none of us are excused from life. I don't care what your profession is, um, whatever your career path, how much money you have, how well your love life is going. We all have seasons in life where we're just not okay. And I had gotten into that season, but I allowed the season of not being okay to last too long, and a big part of it was me overstaying at a job that didn't make me happy, overstaying um in a space that I wasn't happy in, and I only gave energy to the things that I had to, and I gave no energy to myself. And what helped me to get out of that space was that I had to push past the energy. Like sometimes I did things with zero energy for me, but I had to get up and show up for me. It's one thing when we talk about getting up and showing up for other people, but when you get up and you show up for you, is a game changer. It will literally change your life. And I know it's not easy, because when we're in a dark space, sometimes we have the same conversations in our head over and over and over, and we replay things that went on in our lives, and we allow ourselves to live in regret. And we just, before we know it, we're stuck. We're stuck, and nobody knows that we're stuck. It's crazy when you can show up and everybody can think that you're so happy, and everybody like you always smiling, you got everything together, and on the inside you crumbling. That's not fair to you. I do not want you to crumble. I don't want you to hate waking up every morning. I don't want you laying in the bed all day and only showing up for work. Like, you got to show up for you, but I also know what that is. I know what it is to do all of the things that I still have to do and still feel so unfulfilled in the inside. It's time for you to check in with you and ask yourself, what's really going on with me? Why do I feel the way that I feel? And furthermore, it's time for you to stop doing it by yourself. At some point, you got to just be honest. You got to let the emotions rip, right? Sometimes you just have to take off of that strong face in the spaces that you always show up strong. Sometimes you got to pull the mask off, baby, and you got to talk about it in a safe environment. Let me be clear about the safety of unpacking. Where you unpack must be safe. You don't want to unpack in the wrong environment because it can damage you further. I remember this was something so small, but this was at a point where I was at like my peak depression. And I remember me and my sister was supposed to hang out one night. And I was like, yo, you want to go and hang out? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, all right, are we gonna go get something to eat? And so that night I had went and I got my parents something to eat. And I didn't get anything to eat because I'm like, no, I'm gonna wait for um I'm gonna wait for me and my sister to hang out. We gonna have a good time, whatever. And I knew that that night that I just needed to I need to unpack some stuff. So I wanted to hang out with my sister as like a trusted person for me. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hang out with her. And whatever happened that night, she ended up eating. And when I found out she did, I just fell apart. I just started crying. Like I unfolded. And she was just like looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like crying, like, you know how you be crying bad, like you can't get your breath, like your shoulders moving and everything. Like I'm bawling, crying. But I had reached a place where I just couldn't show up anymore and pretend. And it was time to release. When I released, it did something for me in a way that I didn't even intend for it to do it for me, right? Because when you are a high functioning depressed person, you don't really think about unpacking in the places that you have conjured up enough energy to show up in. So I was just supposed to show up, right? Show up my the happy self, make a couple jokes, whatever, right? I wasn't supposed to fall apart. I wasn't supposed to be crying. Like, what is that? But I now understand that when you are a high functioning depressed person, you have to find your safe place to release. Because holding on to everything that you feel, all of those emotions is physically it's weighing you down. And you only have enough energy to pretend. You only have enough energy just to keep your life intact enough, right? And at some point, you gotta unpack, you gotta unload, you gotta talk about it because you're just holding all of that stuff in. And when you go to sleep at night, it's just swimming in you, all inside of you. It's in your head. I wasn't getting any rest. It was just like taking over my world. And truth be told, I call it high functioning. But for me, that's not the quality of life that I want for myself. I don't want my life to be good only when I'm around others. I want to be good when I'm by myself. I want to be good when nobody's around. But you got to have those trusted resources that if that's a coach, if that's a therapist, if that's your sister, you have got to have a safe place to unpack. You cannot carry around all of those emotions and sleep with them and eat with them and go to work with them and socialize with them and never talk about them. You are human. Your feelings are valid. Your emotions are real. Create the space to be heard. I know, I know what it's like to need to hold it together for everybody else. And we often tell ourselves the story of I don't want to unleash because if I unleash then I think it'll set me back. I remember being in a place of depression and I felt like if I talked about it I would completely unravel and then I would be stuck at the place of unraveling. So I led myself to believe that it was healthier for me to keep everything in and not let anything out. And that was the biggest lie that I could have ever told myself. Because as we release, we create space for joy, we create space for happiness and love. But sometimes we're so full of darkness that there is no room for any joy to come in. And so the things that typically bring you joy don't even bring you joy because you ain't even have the space or the capacity to let those things in. It is so important that we have a safe environment to release. Being a high functioning, depressed individual is not good for you, because you might be able to function in all of these spaces, and you might be able to laugh and shoot the breeze or whatever. Cool. But you got to lay with you at night, and you have to deal with those thoughts at night, the things that keep you up. And the only way that you can start to transition into healing is through vulnerability, through openness, being honest. Yes, you have to have the right resources in place. Everybody can't handle your honesty. Everybody doesn't know what to do with it. So I understand in certain positions, some of my clients say, you know, I just, it took me so long to talk to somebody because of my role in my organization, or because who everybody else sees me as. And I understand for some it's a reputation. But let me tell you this. Your reputation is not worth your mental health. It's not worth your joy. It's not worth your peace. Find safety in someone and talk about it. And once you talk about it, then you can set things in place to be accountable for yourself. It's like once I had that breakdown and I talked about, like, yo, this is what I'm really dealing with, then I was able to make room for other things. And I started to hold myself accountable, like, wait a minute. I can tell people when something is going on. There are people that love me. There are people that I trust, that I can share with. There are some people that don't need me to be perfect. You've told yourself that. I've told myself I got to be perfect. I got to always be happy. I always got. That is not true. That's not real. And so I want you to get out of that habit of creating an Instagram life, even in the privacy of your home. What are you doing? Like, why are you creating this Instagram life? Why are you pretending that you're okay when you're not? This is me seeing you in this moment. I know you're out there. I've been there. It's a tough place to be in, but you got to release. You're too full. You're too full of emotions, and you need a release for you. Sure, you going to work every day. Cool. Sure, you still hanging out with your friends occasionally. Cool. You still around your family. Cool. You still smiling every day. You still inspiring people. Okay. Well, how do you feel when you by yourself? That's the real question. How do you feel when you are alone? Are you okay? You know the cliche, it's okay to not be okay. That's true. But let me take it a step further. It's okay to not be okay, but you must find help. Don't just sit there and not be okay and not say anything to anybody. You deserve better than that. And so, me being honest to say, hey, I've been there. Coach Q has been there with all of the resources that I have, with the people that I can trust, but I didn't allow myself. I did not allow myself. I was like, I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to smile. I'm just going to continue to help everybody else and not help myself. Mm-mm. That's not the way to live. It's not. And I know we hear so much about mental health and taking care of yourself, and almost till it feels cliche. But let me tell you, take care of yourself. Really, take care of yourself. And sometimes it's not even just about releasing verbally, but it's also about releasing things. from your life. Some of the things and some of the people that you hold on to is keeping you in depression. I know what it is to be so loyal to something because, like, I'm one of those people, like, when I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, period. And I had found myself in a trap of loyalty so much that I was so loyal to something while my mental health was declining on the back end. I was so loyal to it, but I'm gonna stay depressed. Like, I'm gonna keep this because I said it, but I'm gonna be depressed over here. And I wasn't willing to shift. I was like so rigid in how I did things and how I lived my life and how I showed up for everybody else that I would do it all in the name of my happiness. Like, if I'm not happy, that's cool. But I showed up and I looked happy and I showed up and I was motivating and I showed up and I was inspiring. But that's not enough. It's like, how do you feel when you look in the mirror, when you see yourself, when you look into your eyes? Are you happy? And let me tell you, I was the furthest thing from happy. I was really struggling. I was drowning. So much so that even when I thought I was showing up, close people that are close to me started to be like, "You good? Hmm. I was thinking about you today." And it started to like ooze out. It's only so long that you're gonna be high functioning. It'll start to take over. You will start to emotionally drip. You'll start leaking out and it'll start ruining things that you worked so hard to put together. Talk to somebody, unpack. I don't want you to function in depression just because you can. Get help. I launched the Coach Therapy podcast because I want to be real. I want you to be able to see that we all go through stuff. We're all dealing with something. And I think it's amazing that you show up with a smile every day. And I think it's amazing that you love people despite how you feel. And I think it's amazing that you find a way to push through every day. But I still want you to take care of you. With all of those amazing qualities, nothing trumps taking care of you. Because if you show up for everybody and you don't take care of you, at some point, you won't be here. You know that, right? And so this is for the person that you just finding all the strength in the world to function with so many emotions. Find a space where you can be open and honest. Find a space where you can let it out, where you can cry. You got to make room for your emotions. And I promise you, it'll let some joy in. You'll have some room for some joy. I'm talking about sometimes you got to do that ugly cry. I'm telling y'all, when I had that conversation with my sister, I was crying and the conversation lasted for hours, hours. And I cried. I cried, ain't had no lashes, makeup, nothing left. I cried it all out, but it made room. And it was just like, dang, there are people that see me and that love me. And I shouldn't be going through this by myself. I should not be just only finding a way to show up for other people and not having anything left in the tank for me. That's not the way that I want to live. And if you're living that way, that's not the way that you should be living. You deserve better than that. And so I hope that this honest conversation that I'm having with you all today is helpful. I hope that you don't feel alone. I hope that you feel seen. I hope that you feel understood. And I hope that you will take care of yourself, that you will book the session, make the appointment, have the conversation to unpack so that you can really let joy in, so that you can have energy for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Coach Therapy. Be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.